Hello and welcome to another property market update for Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane for June 2025. And as usual, we're joined by Lauren Staley from Infolio Property Advisors and Your Empire in Melbourne, Zoran Solano from Hot Property Buyers Agency and Your Empire in Brisbane, and myself, Chris Gray from Your Empire in Sydney. Now, we always like to start with the numbers. The numbers tell us exactly what's going on in the market. And so I'll share the numbers from CoreLogic, which is now actually coming up as Cotality. So they've had a little rebrand. Now, for those of you on a small screen, I'll read the numbers for you. Sydney is up 0.5% for the month, 1.1% for the quarter, and 1.1% annually. Melbourne, 0.4 for the month, 1.2 for the quarter, and annually just minus 1.2. And Brisbane, 0.6 for the month, 1.6 for the quarter, and a massive 7.1% annually. So the market's still rising across the whole nation, still up 0.5% for the month, which is still another $5,000 on $1 million property. So it's still big money out there that suddenly you get that every single month. And yep, you're talking about another 50 to towards 100 grand or something like that. Lauren, tell us what's going on in Melbourne.
Fortunately, we're starting to see some signs of recovery. It's been, as you all know, it's been a really tricky sort of 2 years down in the Melbourne or Victorian property market, but we're getting some of the appropriate signs. So we have had a few months of positive growth. Certainly there's markets within markets, but we're starting to see some more positive results. We're seeing more buyers through properties. We're seeing people putting their hands up at auction, but it's not there yet. It's not a blanket, everything's doing well, but we're fortunately, I feel, just starting to make our way through the woods here.
And how about you, Zoran?
Yeah, we're seeing some really interesting things. I think what I refer to as the premium home buyers, so maybe more established financially, looking for more of a premium home for their first property. And when I say premium, it's more premium location. You know, maybe they don't want to sacrifice the position. Maybe they want the ensuite rather than just having the old 3-bed, 1-bath, you know, sort of pre or post war. So that sort of price point of circa 1.5 to 1.8 is what I would sort of look at as our premium first home buyer market, which I know is probably confronting for a lot of people, but you know, we're talking sort of 5 to 6K radius from the CBD, 400 to 600 square meter blocks of land. So, you know, pretty blue chip, pretty premium. And that market is really quite active. The Gold Coast market as well is the most active I've seen it in a decade. We're seeing such large population increase into the Gold and Sunshine Coast, but Gold Coast specifically, we're seeing really strong buyer demand as that's being backed up with infrastructure spending and investment, with the second highway under construction, a lot of other infrastructure going on as well. So those are all really, really positive signs.
And look, speaking to my guys this morning from the sales side, they're saying definitely inquiry levels are up. So obviously we've had the interest rate cut. That's going to change people's serviceability a tiny amount, not massive, but a lot of it's more the emotional side of things. Then people see, well, look, if interest rates are going to be dropping over the year, then that's going to be good. And then speaking to the buying guys as well, because quite often we separate those sides of the business, then they're saying that open homes are definitely busier. But I guess a lot of people are still waiting for the right time, even though we say, look, the right time for you is when you can afford to get in and you've got the mortgage and you've got the buffer. That's the right time. But they say a lot of people are still sitting on the fence. We've had quite a few people talk about Melbourne, Lauren, and I guess there's two trains of thought there. So everyone knows it's gone through a tough time over the last few years. A lot of it, people talking because of the government and the kind of the pro-tenancy laws, things like that. I guess there's two trains of thought. Is either if nothing changes from the government, it's still going to be in the doldrums. And then other people say, well, it's been in the doldrums for a while. The chances are it's going to then have a kicker and have a bit of a bounce back. Are you seeing that it can happen either way, or does it depend on the market?
Really good question. Interestingly, I mean, Melbourne's been a dirty word so far as investors are concerned over the last couple of years. It's, I mean, we went from having 50% of our client base be investors to about 10% of our client base being investors. That's how much of a shift people were making towards other states, and rightly so, because of our changes to legislation and our overly governed policies and a very average government who have overly taxed everything and everyone. And particularly if you have property, it's seen that you're wealthy, right? So they're trying to hit you between the eyes on that. That being said, Melbourne is extraordinarily undervalued at the moment. And I think I know savvy investors are starting to see that. And we've had more investment client meetings over the last 2 months than I've almost had in 1 year's time. So a lot of them are expat investors, and also local investors and interstate investors who are like, look, Melbourne's looking like good value at the moment, and it is. And I mean, my personal view is we are at the bottom of a rising market. I think we're going to see a real increase in prices. So typically speaking, with an investment, we'd tell someone to hold it for 7 to 10 years to really see the fruits of their labor. I don't think you're going to need to hold it that long in order to see some really good positive growth. Additionally, our rents are surging. So there's demand on rental properties. And a lot of that's come because people who were sitting in rental properties had them sold because investors sold them off. And then you've got all of these people who now need to move into other accommodation. So there's just this pressure cooker on the rents. So if you're priced reasonably in a good location, I mean, we're getting 40 to 70 people lining up at our open for inspections. We've got a property management division, which is almost unheard of. So the metrics for investors in Melbourne is looking really strong, but it won't be like that forever. As we know, the markets move really quickly. But I'm feeling quite positive about investing in the Melbourne property market right now.
And look, that's the classic thing with people sitting on the fence. They wait for bigger signs, but the time there's bigger signs, then everyone jumps in straight away. And within 3 or 6 months, they say, I'm too late. The market's moved too much.
Yep. Correct.
It's the same history. We keep repeating ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Some people listen, some people don't, but it all comes around again. Now, we've got a time.
I think people need to think back to year 10 economics when that teacher said, what are the leading indicators and lagging indicators? We are the leading indicators, right? Inquiry coming into our service to buy investment properties, like Lauren has said, is a leading indicator that there's movement in the jungle, right? There's people wanting to make a move. So don't wait for the media, because the media's months behind. Don't wait for the stats of CoreLogic or whatever they're calling themselves these days. They're behind. That is a delayed response to market trends. You need to be in front of that curve.
Exactly, and it's what's going on the street that counts. Now, I had a couple of spots of rain here in Sydney today. It's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, northern New South Wales and Queensland has had a lot of bad weather. When it comes to flood zones and things like that, can you take people through, like, if you buy something in Queensland, is it always going to flood, or how do you avoid the ones that are going to flood and the ones that not, for people that wouldn't have a clue?
Oh, mate, we're including a free canoe with every buyer's agent service purchase that we assist with. No, look, you have to do your research and due diligence, right? And that's exactly what we do. Step one is our local knowledge. Straight away, we know areas that are prone to it or not. And then next step is obviously backing that up with factual data regarding the city councils often have great interactive maps and flood resources. There are different types of flooding: Brisbane River, local river, and overland flow. So there are different types of flooding. Different types of flooding have different effects on your property. A lot of properties are built resiliently here in Brisbane, right? If you're extending or building a home in, for example, overland flow path, you are required to build the habitable space above that flood height so water does not inundate habitable space like bedrooms and living areas. Now, for some people, they go, look, I'm buying in Red Hill, Paddington, inner city areas that are hilly. Yep, I know that I might get a bit of overland flow in the backyard when it's really a heavy deluge. I can live with that. Other people, no, it's too much of a risk. I'm always suggesting to clients to do an initial insurance quote just to see what insurance comes back with. But I was recently at ARIC, the real estate industry's largest annual real estate conference. And one of the interesting things was looking at the data around how insurance companies are assessing risk. It is only going to get harder and more expensive to get insurance for those type of properties. So being critical and being analytical around those items at the moment, I think is going to be something people need to consider moving forward into the future.
Yeah. So again, definitely do your research. Now, in Melbourne, and I guess all around Australia, underquoting is always part of the media, and they love a good agent bashing.
Yeah.
I heard some of your comments, Lauren. You're actually standing up for some of the agents. Do you want to give your perspective on it?
Oh, yeah, it was interesting. I got a call from a media outlet and they're doing a piece on underquoting again in Melbourne. And I just said, look, there's clearly agents that underquote. There is, but they are a handful. Then I believe we've been in such a tricky market here in Victoria. Like when I say it's been hard, pricing property has been the hardest it's ever been. So, and we've come off the back of a really, really low mark. So agents are, rightly so cautious. If you, additionally, I've been in real estate 25 years. Quoting has always been lower than the expectation of the vendor's price. Buyers know this. They know it. Now, if agents were to quote property in line with the value, like really in line with the value, no one had come through the damn door because they just mark another 10 or 15 or 20% on the top of it. So they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. But additionally, I actually feel as though buyers have got so many data points that they can refer to. There is so much information available to buyers to make informed decisions. Rather than throwing their toys out of the cot when they don't take the keys, maybe look internally. If it looks too good to be true, then it probably is. Do your own research, work out what your price is. There may just be someone who's willing to pay more than what you are. And finally, an agent is never able to determine if they're going to have that secret sauce on the day of auction and have 2 or 3 people competing hard. You can't, it happens 1 in 5, maybe less. They can't pinpoint when that's going to occur. So yes, there are certainly underquoting with some agents that are notorious. We let our clients know who they are. We track all of their results. We know them. But there are others that are doing their best to try and get numbers through the door, create interest, and build up a great campaign for their clients. Buyer beware, do your own due diligence rather than pointing the finger because you don't take home the keys.
And I just can't believe you started in real estate when you were 10. I was doing that.
Thank you. That's correct.
And look, in Sydney, quite often we're adding 10 or 20%.
Yeah.
Whereas if you really complain this hard to the government, it'll then become like Queensland, where they won't even give you a number. At least we get a number in Sydney and Melbourne.
Exactly. I'd rather have a number than no number.
How do you guys do it, Zoran?
Mate, look, there are several different marketing strategies. Obviously, as you said, with certain sale styles, they can't give a price guide. So auction, no price guide. You can provide a list of comparable sales if the seller, the owner, gives you permission. But let's face it, it's the real estate agent saying, I think we should or shouldn't give comparable sales, right? And then there's a no price marketing. So when you see for sale or offers or best offer buy, again, technically, no guide can be given from the real estate agent to buyers. And then we have this really, really cool thing called the offers over strategy, which agents love. And if you think about their psychology, the psychology of start it low and watch it go. This is a real estate sales line from way back, right? You call it underquoting if you like. I saw one the other day, offers over 850. As soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, it's going to have a 9. How deep into the 9s will depend on that competition. 1,025,000. So did he underquote? He was probably pretty conservative. He also probably didn't know the market as intimately as more of a local agent or myself does. And he was probably genuinely surprised how much interest he got. That's the other thing. So yes, it's really
Quoted it low.
What's that, sorry?
It's because he quoted it low.
That's right. But look, could that person be reported? Probably. But again, as you said, Lauren, you get a few people in a room, you get even worse than an auction. You get them in a multiple offer private treaty situation where here in Queensland, agents will just say, put your best offer forward. We will not come back to you for further negotiation. The best offers will be presented to the owner. They will accept the one most favorable to them. So you could literally, that 1,025,000 offer, they don't know. They could have been 50, 60K higher than the next highest offer, because it's not like an auction where you can see your competition and what they're bidding. it's behind closed doors. So that's where having someone to navigate that process and knowing that process is really, really critical here in Queensland.
That's the same as the EOI process in Melbourne, or Victoria, or highest and best. We have that too, but again, it's done for smoke and mirrors, and it's usually done when there's not enough depth in the market, or they think there's going to be a small buying pool, and buyers tend to pay more than what they necessarily need to.
And this is the thing. So if you're Joe Public out there and you do this once every 5 or 10 years, and you see the professionals doing it week in, week out for 20 odd years, then it's very, very hard to compete. The only way to really compete with a buyer's agent is to pay more money. And then by definition, you're better off just paying a buyer's agent. Anyway, thanks for joining us. And feel free to reach out to any one of us if you want some help. Lauren Staley from Infolio Property Advisors and Your Empire in Melbourne. Zoran Solano from Hot Property Buyers Agency and Your Empire in Brisbane. And myself, Chris Gray from Your Empire in Sydney. We'll see you next month.